Windows Administrator Explained. Hi everyone, Leo Notenboom here for askleo.com. The concept of administrator in Windows is somewhat confusing. It's not uncommon for people to be disallowed from doing something on their own PC because they're not the administrator, even though their account is the only account on that machine. Administration has several different forms. Let's explore what they are and what it means to be the administrator, even when you're not. When you install Windows from scratch, the account you create is typically the one you'll end up using every day. It's what I call administrator capable. That means two things. As you go about your business, the account does not have administrative permissions. If you attempt to do something that requires administrative permission, say install a new program, you'll be prompted with the UAC, or User Account Control dialog. All you have to say is, yes, I want this change or whatever to happen. Now, in some cases, attempts to do something requiring administrative privileges will fail, saying something weird like elevation required or something equally obscure. The administrator capable account can then either run the program as administrator or run it from within a terminal command prompt, admin, which essentially runs command prompt as administrator. So the rule of thumb is simply this. The default user account created when you install Windows can run as administrator, but it does not do so by default. This actually makes it more difficult for malware to do bad things without you noticing, should malware actually attempt to run. The other common type of account is referred to as a standard or limited user account. This account is not administrator capable, and yet it can still run software requiring administrative privileges with an additional condition. In fact, honestly, it's amazingly similar to the administrator capable account. As you go about your business, the account does not have administrative permissions, just like before. If you attempt to do something that requires administrative permission, again, you'll typically be prompted with the UAC, or User Account Control dialog, but this time with an additional requirement. If you're running a standard user account, the UAC dialog will include the requirement that you provide a password for one of the administrator-capable accounts on the machine. In other words, a standard user cannot perform administrative actions unless they also know or have been given the credentials for an administrative account. These accounts might be given to someone who needs to use the machine, but honestly is someone who shouldn't be making administrative level changes on that machine. Now, there is an account called administrator on every Windows machine. It's disabled by default. It can be enabled by any administrator-capable account. When initially enabled, it has no password, meaning it's a huge security risk until you set one. When you use it, it runs as administrator at all times. No UAC prompts will appear. Now, it might sound really nice never having to deal with a UAC prompt and always be able to do whatever you want, whenever you want. The problem, of course, is that using the administrator account for day-to-day activity is a major security risk. Any malware that makes it onto your machine while you're in administrator mode is also an administrator, and it won't be stopped by any UAC notifications. Malware in this situation typically arrives and installs silently. In reality, and for safety, there's rarely a reason to even enable this account. But if enabled, it should not be used for normal activity. Now, one approach some people use to make their administrator-capable account more like the true administrator account is to turn off user account control completely. With this set to never notify, an administrator-capable account acts more like the true administrator account. You'll never see a UAC prompt, and actions requiring administrative access will simply just work. UAC Never Notify is not recommended because it removes that important barrier that protects you from malware. With this setting, if malware makes it to your machine, it can once again run without notice. UAC forces you to give permission for the big changes to take place. Since interest in Linux is increasing, I think it's worthwhile noting that, with the exception of the UAC prompt itself, each of these types of administrative access actually has almost direct equivalents in the Linux world. The administrator account is equivalent to the account called root in Linux. Sign into Linux using the account root and you have all administrative privileges all the time. Just like Windows, it's not recommended to run as root at all times. Not so much because of malware, but because mistakes can have unexpected system-wide consequences. It's sometimes referred to as the super user account. Administrator capable is the equivalent to, well, any Linux login that has been added to what's called the sudoers file or sudoers file. This allows the account, normally running with restricted permissions, to act as root by invoking the sudo, sudo, do as superuser command, providing their own password, the one they already know and use to sign in the first place. This prevents other people from just walking up to the machine and using sudo. Just like Windows, the initial account created by most Linux installers is administrator capable and in the sudoers file. Now, standard or limited user accounts are equivalent to a Linux login that is just not in the sudoers file. They too can still perform administrative tasks, but only if they know the root, aka superuser, password using the su command. UAC doesn't really have a direct equivalent in Linux. The closest equivalent is that if you attempt to do something requiring superuser access, it'll just fail. You would then rerun the command with sudo if your account has that capability, or you'd use the su command to become root if you know the password. Unless you have specific reasons to do otherwise, stick with using your administrator-capable account. The annoyance of a UAC interruption when you need to do something requiring administrative access is a very, very small price to pay for its additional security. For updates, for comments, for links related to this topic and more, visit askleo.com/190297. I'm Leo Notenboom, and this is askleo.com. Thanks for watching.